Can you hear me now? Hear you now. Everybody can hear me now, right? Yay! I did it. Okay, Chris, we should be good to go now.
There we go. Everybody can still hear me?
You're coming in nice and strong.
There we go. That's how I like it.
Everybody's loving your studio. I got a lot.
Thank you very
I got a
much.
lot of people coming in. There's something with Nephilim media creators, everybody, that I have about four friends that are all 6'6" and above in the media space. They're all really into music. They all have these killer studios. So it's a good thing that I got you here to talk about tech tonight, Chris,
Yeah, that's
because
right.
because we got to get into this pan of it all. Our personal area network, our biofield, all the good stuff. Could you introduce yourself to the crowd?
Absolutely. My name is Chris Crutchfield.
As
I
in Crutchfield
am.
magazine, what?
That's right.
Uh,
I would love to take claim or ownership. So if I got a distant uncle or relative that maybe didn't show up to the family reunion,
you got to hook
here
me
I
up with
am.
some home audio equipment, bro.
That's or some car stereo equipment or some laser disc, 6 disc laser disc changer. So yeah, I always read that magazine growing up, and I was like,
So,
this is so cool.
I know, same
But
here.
I don't know the relation. That being said, I am ironically into media. So I guess the way I describe myself is someone who grew up playing sports and in the arts, discovered I have a love for engineering and kind of went to school for engineering and computer science
Hmm.
and got kind of a trajectory going with that, just enough momentum going in that direction to know that I didn't want to have a career out of that. Just found it a bit too boxed in, too behind the computer.
Hmm.
That translated into editing and video editing, which then stumbled into writing and producing, and then eventually directing, and then moving to Los Angeles and doing the same thing for about a decade there, all the way up to some of the biggest, you know, outlets and stuff, just to get to a place about, at the height of my, what, looking back on it, my time there, uh, to realize that this is just something that I'm not interested in. I didn't know what this industry was about until I learned, and then when I learned, I was kind of like, but I don't really want that. So
Hmm.
now what? And that now what has kind of driven me to figure out, well, how does this world really work? Because this industry that I thought I knew how it worked doesn't work like how I thought it worked. And
Hmm.
now I'm learning that it's more connected to things on the backside of things than I ever realized.
Hmm.
That's just what's propelled my search for the truth that kind of boiled and bubbled into the 2020 era, where I just couldn't help but stop running my mouth about what just was clearly ridiculous reality going on around. And when I did, I found that a lot of people felt the same way. So I have a video production company. What I do for trade is commercials production, any kind of branded content or video production, but also audio production, scoring, sound design. I've done kind of everything on that side of the table except for direct a feature film, but probably edit and documentary and all the rest. I've been a part of all kinds of stuff. It's just I try not to let my past career define me, and I'm. That's a good question. Like describe yourself, because I'm like, okay, who am I? What am I? Right now, I'm just a father of two, husband, 6'7", former. Well, I say former basketball player because the last time I tried to play was the
You
last time I
broke.
decided. Yeah, exactly.
You literally broke in half.
Right. I was like, all right. So that's the last time I'm playing. So I've kind of done it all, but I really enjoy taking complex things and breaking them down into simple discussions for people to really kind of like wrap their head around what's going on. You see what I mean? Just like, oh, I can get this, and I feel like I have a way to communicate this. So let me help take y'all and take this and bring it together. And I just felt compelled to do that as I learned about how our electric body exists
Hmm.
and how few and how little people know about it.
Well, this is where you come into my life. I listened to Alex Zeck's podcast, The Way Forward, and you pretty much did a master class in your pod with him. By the way, I've been telling everybody, you got to check out The Way Forward with Chris Crutchfield. It's by far the best podcast I've heard this year. And
Thank you.
the reason why is you took the work of Sabrina Wallace, which I find listening to her, especially when she's all like hyperactive and stuff like that, I found that I get kind of like jarred by that energy a little bit. So I don't really receive what she has to say, even though I know what she's saying is very
Hmm.
important. And she was sort of the successor to the work of Alison McDowell, who I'd studied for many, many years. Are you familiar with Alison McDowell?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So in Allison's work, I got into her work years and years ago because I used to be into blockchain and all that until I figured out that, I was like most people, very naive to it, especially in 2013, 2014. I really did think it was like, the white papers, the Satoshi Nakamoto,
Nakamoto.
all of it,
That's funny. Yeah,
I
that's
was
funny.
believing it. And then like 2016 rolled around, 2017, and it was just like, oh man, this is such a scam.
Mm,
And
it's one of those. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, and so just to tie all this into the blockchain with Alison McDowell's work, at that time that she helped me, kind of figure out that this whole thing is just a way to get to use our biometrics in the blockchain. And in seeing that, it was just so apparent because I think it was 2000, it was in 2010 that I was under the wing of General Bert Stubblebine in Panama, and he's like downloading to me the whole Agenda 21 thing. And
Hmm.
so I was just like, oh, this is the perfect way to have like a quote unquote jubilee without anybody
Hmm.
knowing it.
That's a great way to put it too.
Yeah, because the Jubilee in and of itself is just like there's a historical precedent that whenever you have a currency that reaches a beyond its debt limit, they don't usually pay the debt. They just change the currency.
They call it a.
uh, I think something. Can you guys hear me? Something I hear. Can you hear me, Chris? Your audio's out. I can't hear you.
Audio.
There you are.
My audio. Yeah. Am I here?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. There we go.
yeah,
Oh, my Jubilee joke got cut off. I
yeah,
said it
man.
would be a Jubilee, wouldn't it?
Well, it's even before the quote unquote Jew believers were out there. There
Yeah, I
were
know.
there were other, let's just say it, creme de la creme that would just do
Mm.
this little scam. And so,
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
it, so what was brilliant about your podcast, and it was like the period at the end of the sentence that I needed, was that you tied in all the stuff that Sabrina talks about when it comes to like our biofield anatomy and the way it's actually being metered and monitored relative to the tech that's out there and the tech that's coming. And then that kind of completed the whole Agenda 21 picture to me, if that makes
Yep.
any sense.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That's fascinating you say it like that because it's almost like hearing you explain what I helped you understand helps me understand the bigger
Yeah,
picture
yeah,
too. It's like a high five.
yeah, definitely.
The Christopher high five. It, you know, Alison McDowell's work came for me kind of concurrent to Sabrina's. And
Hmm.
I saw them as related, but I didn't know how related until a little later. So Allison always represented kind of high level stuff, like models and like the actual tokenomics frameworks and the large bird's
Hmm.
eye view of how this is being shaped. Where Sabrina always represented granular very specific terms and technologies and actual protocols and standards about how this works.
Hmm.
And it wasn't until I kept hearing enough to be like, oh wait, that's the same thing. Okay, got it. Oh, oh wait, I don't think people know this. Okay, I can't just forever because that like it doesn't. I don't know. I just feel like that would be a waste of time. Like, you know what I'm saying? I feel like I would feel bad about that, where the ultimate ending to be like is look what it looks like all the movies are saying is gonna look like.
Right.
So I kind of, thank you for kind of breaking that down because that to me that tells me that a lot of people are tracking on the same page
Hmm.
and everybody's got their little zone. I find when I found Sabrina's work, it was half crazy talk, half complete sanity. It's like half insanity, half sanity. And it was enough information to know that the sanity part was like, okay, the sanity part is too sound for the insanity to just be out of her butt. So, okay, like, uh, okay, I got to grapple with what this means now. And so I got to do some reading. And when I did some reading, it's kind of like my tech, that little computer science section of my life really helped me like, you remember that? Yep, that too. And what that really boiled down to, I really think is just a unique take on how it works I because I don't feel like I need to be too technical to convey the conversation. Whereas I feel like Sabrina's role is to be too technical so that all the technical people can help pick up the strings and pick up the pistons and move the engine and solutions forward. And I think that she obviously tries to kind of like simplify when she can, but I love the rants are my favorite ones because I'm always like it's like as long as it's like as long as all that's going on, you can kind of just deliver the truth just like this.
Hmm.
That's what I think Owen does really well. Your friend Owen,
Yeah, yeah.
he
Oh,
just is like he hits you with this energy, and then you got the truth. Like, all right, like take it or leave it, but like at least you paid attention.
yeah. The best way of teaching people is indirectly, because so many times people put their fist up
Yeah, oh yeah.
because we all have the sacred cows,
Mm-hmm.
and people are. I mean, the level of addiction when it comes to electronics is pretty out there. So I actually think it's a very effective way. I don't know if she was purposely doing that because I've since seen her talk with Eileen Mikuzik. Have you seen that interview that they did?
I would like to humble brag and say that I was the one who set that interview up. But yes, I did see it.
Oh, she was like chill, man. She was just
Yeah.
like down to earth. Now there's people in the chat asking who Sabrina Wallace is. Can you give people a little rundown of what she was explaining?
Sure. Okay, so Sabrina Wallace is a networking engineer who happened to come from a particular family that gave her certain insights about just the way that the government and the intelligence community works. And in 2021 or 2022 or something thereabouts, she began speaking out on what she was piecing together regarding the combination with the internet and internet networking as to and directly to the human biofield and the human electric body.
Hmm.
And what she's explaining in I can't say in so many words because it's in like literally a billion words. It what she's explaining is that hey, listen, we have the ability to gain access over this body part that I don't know that many people are aware exists. But just like your nose governs your sense of smell, and your eyes govern your sense of sight, and your ears govern your sense of hearing, and your taste buds govern your sense of taste, and your nerve endings govern your sense of touch. Your biofield governs your sixth sense. This
Hmm.
sixth sense that everybody acknowledges but kind of doesn't really talk about because it's kind of just there but not there. The reason that is because in the late 1800s, early 1900s, the fully understood and existing in medical literature electric body got removed from medical literature for about 100 years and got placed back somewhere in the late 90s, early 2000s in the NIH as an actual term. And in doing that, that 100 years of R&D was all about like digitizing you, doing what essentially laying the groundwork for the high level stuff that um, um, Allison talks about,
Yes.
and then using the acute granular technologies that Sabrina helps bring forth to actually plug you into the existing internet network. And
Mhm.
that was for me the big epiphany because I already understood the internet networking part. I was just pulling my hair out going, so hold on. All you have to do is translate a biological signal to a digital signal, and then bloom, like a Lego, it already connects to all the existing Legos that have ever been made out of the Lego company. Like, wait, hold on now. Like, this whole future is real close right now, y'all, because that's a big leap, or sorry, a big closing of the gap. You know, what we all were under the impression would take a big technological leap has been presented as not possible, but like ubiquitous since 1996, commercial since 2005,
Mhm.
mandatory since 2017.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like she just provides all the paperwork and you either take it or leave it, and she kind of presents it in a pretty prickly package for a lot of people. And God bless her for it because it was prickly enough to catch my attention, and it was like, oh wow, if people really knew what this lady talk about, they would actually pay more attention.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, that's a beautiful summary of what's going on. I've been very alert to electrical fields because one of my occupations is deep tissue myofascial release. So
mm,
I'm laying my hands on people all the time. And when I was being trained initially was in the late 90s and the early 2000s, and that was before like the advent of like everybody having, smartphones and everything being on the internet and stuff like that. So I got to train in spaces that were pretty much had very little electro smog. But even back
mm-hmm,
then, I would come across people that were considered electrosensitive. And
mm-hmm,
in their electrosensitivity, the way their body feels is it actually feels like it itself is humming. And I had one of these clients who was actually a friend of mine, and his hand one day was just out by like he was just lounging on this chaise lounge, and his hand was by an outlet, and there was like a volt like a little
the
spark
arc.
arc. And so there are people that are wired like this that they literally go nuts with all the fields, and a lot of times this will actually link to schizophrenia. I've
Mm,
seen people that have schizophrenic episodes also have this electrical sensitivity. It's like no matter what, the electricity wants to run through them and ground. And so I've
yeah.
I've been aware that they're like there are just certain people that aren't meant to be in this modern environment, in this electrical
Mm-hmm.
smog, you know.
Yeah, no, for real.
And then I had this really come into my consciousness in a very real way when the advent of like 5G happened in 2020. My wife was pregnant with our child, and we had come back to Florida just to like see the parents and everything like that. And I had no idea that they were testing a 5G tower, but or towers, a network. But I had the symptoms of a heart attack. And then I didn't tell anybody because I was like, my wife is going to have our child soon. I can't freak her out.
Right. Exactly.
I didn't actually have any suspicion of it until the next day when it happened at exactly the same time. And that's when I went online and I was like,
Mm,
zip code 5G testing. My instinct just told me because I could see like
mm,
all the little things on all the light towers. And I was like, whoa. And then COVID happened. And the way COVID hit me, I was down in Costa Rica, and I didn't believe in the story or anything like that, but I did experience something that had all the symptoms related. Like I couldn't breathe, I couldn't whatever. And for the life of me, the only thing I could figure out was down there, they have no, literally the towers that they have up, they're allowed to do whatever ampage they want. Like they have no restrictions. And I don't know if they just sent out a signal. Like
You mean down in Costa Rica?
down in Costa Rica.
Got it.
And
You know,
like
go ahead.
who's to say, because I don't believe in the virus model or anything like that the way it's explained. And so, but I have been around enough electropollution, and then I've been immersed in a cloud forest for 10 years with like
Hmm.
living completely off grid, making earthen buildings, with my feet traipsing in the mud and stuff. So I know ground also. And I live in a space in between that now. And I do feel like when I'm in these like completely electro smog spaces, like going into certain cityscapes, I just get completely drained. Where is the state of the art right now with this technology? Is it more on like, okay, I'm opting in because I have an iPhone, or is it on a broader scale, essentially being engineered into life to have that like detrimental succubus effect on our bodies?
It's half and half. It's like 75 25. 25% the first thing you said, 75% the second thing you said. Meaning even if you eschewed all phones and technology, there would still be a baseline assault threat. So what they basically did is they said, "Hey, listen." And I'm condensing a lot of history in the 1800s down up until the 1917 Federal Reserve Act, and then the Great Depression, and then the 1933, the big changeover in 1933, the New Deal construction, as it's kind of come to known in the law circles. And what that basically did was it said, hey, when you look in any law dictionary, historically from the Roman merchant system, your estate, your estate, your estate, is defined as your lifetime labor value.
Mm-hmm.
And in like a royalty estate or like a Michael Jackson estate or something like that, we understand that concept. What we don't understand, or at least I didn't understand, is that your estate applies to every single person in the United States of a bunch of groups of estates collectively interested in the Commonwealth of Virginia at the time, at the its formation, or the Commonwealth of North Carolina, or the Republic of California. All these states. The federal system comes in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and then we get this foreign private system with a good branding and PR department, a wicked props department,
Mm-hmm.
and a ton of fresh auditioners coming in every season or every 4 years to act like the role of the president. But it was never that since the 1917,
Mm-hmm.
since 1871, period. Then definitely not since 1917, and definitely not since 1933, when it became default that your estate is held in trust by someone else and not you. I think that 50, 60, 70 years of time was what gave them like, well, all right, if you don't want actual legal title over your body, fine, we'll keep it. Ain't nobody stepped up to the plate and said they don't actually care about this. So what we're gonna do is go for broke. We want equitable title in your estate. We want a physical vested interest in your physical corporeal body
Mm.
so that we can actually drive policy and have it be legal because you didn't opt out. And one of the maxims of law is this whole concept of a
Tacit
claim
agreement.
exactly, this claim that goes uncontested is agreed to.
Mm-hmm.
So you basically tacitly agree to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's that 75% I was talking about. The fact that it's an engine, we're down the line, it's like not a new thing. But where we are now with it is that they have defined our warfare strategy, our national warfare and defense strategy is defined based on software defined networking and network security. using wide body area networks, amongst other things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the business, the fact that it's been a privately owned conversation since 1871 has laid all the groundwork for the last 150 years to get us to where we are today. And where that place is an actual deployment, never mind R&D, a whole deployment of systems that at 5 years ago where a button was being hit and then a whole props department was sent out to talk about a bat and a pangolin in the wet market in China for a year and a half. And then a PlayStation controller was being dialed in called Omicron, enter, execute. And the two conversations, nary the two shall meet. You see what I'm saying? It's all about this siloing of the conversation between politics or academia or religion or education. We need better. Trump is trying to abolish the Department of Education. Well, we need to. Everybody should hope. There's all these like opinions going, and the real issue is nobody's zoomed out enough, as far as I can tell, to really say, okay, what's happening here is that they're actually assuming that they can just take control of your body, and because up until basically right now, nobody's really ever stood up to them. They've done a lot of work already
Mm-hmm.
to your grandparents and to your parents and to you and to your kids. So like let's cry and like get over it. Like cry me a river, build a bridge, and then get on over and let's get to work. But the point is, once we go through that mourning and that understanding season, the growth period is about learning, okay, well, what can we do about it? What is going on and what can we do about it? And that's where people like Sabrina, for me, come in and they go, okay, so there is a solution, but it's going to require that you believe that this electric body of yours is number one, a part of your actual body,
Mm-hmm.
and is controllable and is under duress. So between World War II and the coming online of all these technologies, what we've just seen build is this slow grid of all these networks over time: radar, radio frequency, microwave, all these things in these different zones of the electromagnetic spectrum that build out this one global, you might as well call it the Borg, right? It's kind of
Yeah.
been like alluded to in a thousand different metaphors.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do find that metaphors are very helpful because they say a lot with just saying like one word. But it's very much this central eye in this computer. Westworld call it Rehoboam.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, Blade Runner calls it something different. Everybody kind of alludes to it. But what it really is this Department of Defense information network. That's what they call it. And this information grid is, I mean, Palantir is but a tentacle, right? So if anybody knows much about Palantir, yes, Palantir, but like them and all the, like you just not heard about them today. Like what about the last 100 years? So much of that has been about redacting the bioelectric reality of just a simple photograph or like just the basics, just a lot of basic stuff. You're familiar with the biofield, so it won't be any surprise to you. Are you familiar with the concept of Carillion photography?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm just catching up, late to the bus and late to the game, and I'm putting all this knowledge together and just learning and going, okay, so let me get this straight. If Apple and Google and everybody else wants to give everybody 5 gigs worth of JPEG high resolution data where every year the only thing better about the iPhone is the camera and that's it. And they're willing to give everybody free storage, but not tell them that every photo contains all this extra bioelectric information about you.
Mm-hmm.
That is doing a lot more for Palantir's database than your little tweet here and there and your little upload. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying that isn't also. I'm just saying it's just like there's just 75% of stuff going on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And the hard part I think that helps people really bring down from the lofty to the basic is the concept of standards. So a lot of people have a hard time believing, okay, how can this much bad, nefarious activity and interconnectivity happen with nobody saying anything for this long? And to that, I always say, well, one, plenty of people said stuff, you just wasn't paying attention. And two, they were being silenced. But more importantly, it's all siloed, it's all compartmentalized. and any one industry doesn't really necessarily know really what's going on other than certain anomalies with whatever they're focusing on, if they're at the high private level of even being given the contract to be dealing with this stuff.
Hmm.
So where it lands for people is to saying, okay, if I am a part of the standard of setting that Bluetooth, something as common as Bluetooth, is ratified in the working group called 802 and under the subdivision called 15.4, and that is the common standard we know Bluetooth, then why is the wide body area network 802.15.6? That just seems really weird. Wi-Fi is 802.11. You got all these other wireless protocols that are in that general same working group. Why does nobody talk about this one right here, and what is it? And when you find, oh, it's the whole tokenomics underpinning of everything that Allison McDowell's been talking about this whole
Hmm.
time, you're kind of like,
L-
okay.
Let me give people a little context with what Allison's talking about with tokenomics. So Allison's work is very good at showing that pretty much for the last 15 years in earnest, the technology has been putting out to securitize our biometrics. Because the way the debt game works is the debt game works by always having something in the natural world be the sign of nature or the signature, right? And so the reason why, and this gets into some incredible social engineering, the reason why there's been such a huge push towards identity politics, because I don't know how many of you out there in the chat are going to listen to this in the future, but in the 90s, we didn't have any problems like this. We didn't have identity politics. Like, I mean, I played football, 70% of my team was black. Like I grew up in South Florida with Cubans and Jamaicans and Haitians and Venezuelans. Like, it was a smorgasbord, and we all made fun. We all just made fun of the weaknesses and the strengths of each one of our like little racial cultural groups. They put this plan in earnest, pretty much at the end of the Clinton, era, to essentially really push identity politics because they wanted us to identify with the physicality, like with the, you're a white guy, you're a black guy, you're a lesbian, you're this, LBGTQ, whatever it is, it didn't matter. Because that's what actually allows people to buy into your body is your sign of nature.
Yeah, good point.
And so that sign of nature thing that she talks about is like, okay, they have all this underpinning. They literally have, like, you go to her website is, I believe it's wrenchingthegears.com. I believe that's what it is. And she shows like the flow charts of like how these massive organizations and corporations have all geared towards this so that in the future, essentially there's something that's reading your biometrics, and you just brought up, the Kirlian photography, like something's reading your energetic field. And then there can be instant securitization of that. And then just like they do in the mortgage market, mortgage is kind of funny when you say that, life debt. In the mortgage market, they'll take all these different securities and they'll put them in a tranche and then sell all that tranche as one thing as another security. They're planning on doing that with our biometrics. And then in real time, adjusting what credits are available to you, what tokens are available to you. And this is the mechanism of Catherine Austin Fitts, who I've been reading the Solari report now for 8 or 9 years. She's emphatic about it. Do not give up cash. Don't let all money, or when we're talking about digital currency, it's a currency. It's not actually money.
Right.
Don't allow money to go by the wayside. You want to have money, because if it gets to an all credit system, man, there have been some Black Mirror episodes that were like, dude, so frightening, because I think it's so real. Like, because let's put it this way. The reason why this is so important, this is the reason why what you shared is so important to me is, dude, the commodities market in Chicago, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The second they make something a quote unquote commodity, you have players on both sides that are working on cheating. They're working on shorting that commodity. They're working on long futures on that commodity. Guess what's going to happen to your biology when you're tranched? Okay. So look, guys, we got 100,000 white males between the age of 40 and 50 years old with this amount of income. This tranche is looking like this. It's weighing on my portfolio. Let's send a little signal, a little spiky protein signal, and let's make our profit. I'm telling you, people are going to cheat the system. Like, it's without a doubt.
Yeah. And it's like, and the craziest part is that it all connects with the bioenergetics of it all, because we are meant to power the new system. Mm-hmm. So everything Topher is saying is 100% correct. But the other big secondary punch that comes to finish off your nose once the first punch already breaks it is the fact that they're not relying on server-based systems moving forward. They're relying on biosystems. So when someone's trading futures and shorting the 100,000 white males between 40 and 50, they're shorting an amount of time where they're not used as a joule slave, Joule. Mm-hmm. Like an electric joule siphoning. Because what it is the system is looking to just offload processing. Mm-hmm. See what I'm saying? The lack of processing is what's called comfort. And discomfort is extra processing.
Right.
Dis-ease is maximum amount of processing or specific acute processing. Whereas letting your body just do what it's going to do is the absence of that.
So Chris, check this out. Maybe you'll have some insight. I believe it was January of 2025 this last year. It was either January or early February. I think it was January. We had this weird fog here. That's dead of winter in Missouri. And I checked in my network. My network is small. I have like 1,000 people in the chat, and all around the country, people were experiencing like this 3-day fog. And I just happened to be driving across state for like 6 hours. And I was just like, what is this fog? Because normally fog isn't that persistent over a long distance. And then, over a period of time, people really started to be like, oh man, I got sick or whatever. And so I've been an orgone accumulator builder. I've built active orgone accumulators, I've built cloud busters, and all this Reichian technology essentially is working on the geometry, the matrix that water can actually create fields. They call it orgone. Schauberger would call it qualigens, but whatever is within this field, you will have a higher output. You'll have a higher quality of things that will actually come from it. Okay? This fog was the opposite. Everything that this fog was in, people were having headaches. They weren't feeling good. People were saying, oh, it's chemical warfare. And I checked in intuitively and I was like, no, this isn't chemical warfare. This is weaponized water. And I've had these talks with Alec, and I've had these talks with now, I just interviewed Veda Austin. And this is what Wilhelm Reich would call DOR, or dead orgone energy. My friend Mitch, the orgone donor, he hates saying DOR, but he does call it dead orgone energy. It's this,
DOE, yeah.
it's essentially when there's a corruption of water particulates, and then that like that de-energizes, it devitalizes whatever biological system it comes across. And so if you're already less than stellar, if you're already less than optimal,
Wow.
that's going to have a real effect on you. And
Yeah.
so check this out. So I'm getting to the point.
Yeah, go ahead.
I instantly knew at that point. I was like, oh, this is cloud computing. So the water vapor, all clouds are a water vapor, but it's a very specific geometry of water.
Right.
And then I was like, well, we already know water has an incommensurate geometry. It's a fractal that's essentially infinite. So in an infinite geometry, you can store infinite amount of information. And I just started to laugh. I was just like, holy shit, this is the real cloud computing.
Cloud computing. It's funny you mentioned that, because I have this theory that the answer is always right in the name.
Yeah.
Right on the logo. It's
iCloud.
That's the answer to the riddle. And just the fact that it's called the cloud in general, like I understand the nickname of it, but I've always been like, they could have picked anything, like on cloud, I didn't understand the kind of idea of it being in the air versus the farm or like the bunker, whatever. But to what you were saying, so that intuition is interesting, because I've known that exists, and I remember that story about the fog. I just didn't connect that incident might have been in a case of water warfare, weaponized water. So I've been talking a lot with the parties that you mentioned, as well as some others, about just my theories lately on how like the simplest way to put it is, I think that the Higgs field is a red herring. I think that water is the simplest way to explain ether. That electricity flowing through the atmospheric rivers, as well as the condensation and just the moisture in the air, is electrostatic enough to be the conduit of what basically is ether. And we can pick 1,000 different names up the millimeter and picometer nanometer scale to call it different things. And the Higgs field is just one more red herring to get y'all spun off for another 100 years. But the idea is...
Oh, I see a spy. I saw a spy. Down. Look, it's a spy right behind you.
Oh, a spy. A water spy.
It's the deep state. It's the deep state.
It's the deep state. She says the deep state. Thank you, deep state water. Bring more to you by.
Awesome.
But yeah, I could pontificate for forever on why I think the Higgs field is a red herring. But the simplest way to say it is, I think water is the connector. This whole like, our field is connected. I thought about my friend, and he called me on the phone. I was with my homegirls and all our periods linked up. I saw this homeboy across the room yawn, and I was like, I yawn too. And it was like, nobody knows that this is electrical information being passed through the water vapor.
Well, can I share another thing with you?
Mm-hmm.
So I've been under attack directly from a millimeter weapon back in 2004. And the way it felt to me and the 6 other people that experienced it was like, it felt like you were being microwaved. So that was kind of like that was extremely agitating, to say the least, right? Mm-hmm. So I started to get this feeling in this area that I moved to. My family and I, we had this little ritual of going to a restaurant that was about 6 or 7 miles away. And whenever we drive out, I always notice like this anomaly in the sky in this one specific spot. And my wife would always have a headache at that time of day. And it was very weird. And it was only that day. And it wasn't like there was stress or anything that was causing it. And then one day the weather was in this particular way, and the anomaly looked like this huge lens. It looked like a concave lens, and I'm pretty sensitive to those shapes because of the buildings I do. And I was like, that can't be. That's not anomalous anymore. I've seen it multiple times now, and it's too consistent. And
Right.
people are feeling like a lot of the women, and I brought this up because of the water, because women are much more sensitive to the water element. And I was like, huh. And so upon further investigation of my area, there ended up being a massive 5G tower there that was unregistered. And
Oh.
it was on a piece of land that is a reserve. And I had a person that was staying here that gets all of his internet remotely. So he has one of those, like, it finds where the best signal is. And
Mhm.
this was like 3 years ago. And like none of like AT&T or Verizon even have this tower on their charting system. But
Oh,
but
wow.
but they can see the signal strength from it because
Right.
they have heat maps of 5G signal strength. So they were really confused when I brought it to their attention. I was like, shouldn't I be receiving my signal from that tower right there? It's the closest thing to me. And its dispersal pattern is omnidirectional. It's not unidirectional like some of the towers that are on the highway. And they're like, "Huh, we don't have that tower on file."
Power.
Well, it
You're like,
comes.
ruh-roh.
And so my friend that did that thing for me, that found out where that tower was, he went ahead and plotted where the other, omnidirectional towers are that aren't registered. And dude, they put them right on top of water springs.
You know, I figured. It's funny you say that. I'm so glad you said that because it's reminding me of the original point that I was making earlier. I believe that is the primary vector of disease assault. And
Yes.
and more than that, like emotional and psychological assault on a population. It's the springs, but more than anything, the municipal water centers. I know that not in every city, but at least in like LA and a lot of your bigger cities, the Department of Water and Power is together. And I guarantee you the amount of power that's needed to both clean and process as well as magnetically charge. I mean, granted, you could do it with something much smaller than a whole power machine, power particle collider or nuclear reactor. But the point is, I think that they've been working with the knowledge that you can acutely charge and print water with information.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've been doing that this whole time and just been like, get a Berkey, get a Brita. Get a Brita. Yeah, no, no. Oh, you're bougie? Get a Berkey then. Yeah, yeah. Wow. See what I mean? And it's like none of that takes any of the energy information out of the water.
No, it doesn't. I've been, God, ever since reading Schauberger in '05, I've been like balls to bones going for it with how to purify my water. That's the reason why I got into biochar. Was like, oh, well, it's one of the reasons. Like biochar, like actually cleans because it's so diamagnetically charged. Yet it's not a
Hmm.
ferromagnet. It literally wipes the memory of the water. I was talking,
Oh, it's like a magnet over a VHS or something.
yeah, yeah. I was talking to Veda Austin about this last week because like I was telling her like in the highest like end like consumer grade filters they'll sell you something that has just charcoal in it, but charcoal isn't biochar. Biochar is diamagnetic,
Got it.
whereas charcoal is not. And so the diamagnetism, it has 3 times the diamagnetism as bismuth. And so when water goes over a semi-porous or a very porous structure, it self-structures because it gets this little thing. The microcavules create all these little micro implosions, and that self structures the water. but then the diamagnetism just wipes the memory.
Wipes the memory. Interesting.
So it's really kind of funny, for as crappy as seeing that 5G tower and that dome it creates in the clouds above it. My biochar pit that I have over by my barn, that does the opposite. It pulls the water to it. You can see, like, whenever there's a fog line, there's always an indentation coming down.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so do you treat your water or pass it through the biochar or over it? Or I was gonna ask earlier.
I do a lot of things.
So how, like, run everybody, because I want to tell you about my water experience, but I want to hear about your water experience first. What's your water experience like?
So,
like, how do you drink your water? How do you prepare and get it all ready to be bequeathed upon yourselves?
So we bought this farm mainly because it had an artesian spring. Like, when we were driving up to it, I drove over trickling water, and I was like, oh, and then I could see the slope of the land, and I was like, and then there was a lake on the low side, and I was like, oh, I didn't even have to see the house. I was like, oh,
Yeah, you were like, say less, yeah.
And
Offer it.
so this house had terrible pipes. It had like, God,
You couldn't sing.
what were the pipes? They were galvanized pipes. And so could you imagine like 40-year-old galvanized pipes? So we ripped out all the pipes. I put in a whole house, triple, what is it? It's a triple osmosis RO filtration system for the full house. And then in our kitchen, when the water comes out, I have a Mayu. Oh, in that RO I forgot to tell you what I did to the RO filter. I took out their carbon. Actually, they had a paper filtration on the front side and carbon on the back side. I kept the paper filtration on the front side, and then I replaced their carbon on the back side with my biochar. So the water then goes through the biochar, and then they had an UV lamp where the water, would be disinfected. And I got rid of the UV lamp, and then I replaced that with a red light, exactly, infrared.
Like a 670 or 690 or like, or I forget the number that's that range of infrared, but I know one's supposed to be better for this and that. And I didn't know if you get into like the specific sub-numbers.
I didn't. My whole thing is like in building like a lot of sweat lodges and temescals, and learning about the art from like Mexican Highlanders of like when you heat the red earth, how energizing that is for the body. I just was like, huh. And reading Gerald Pollack's first book, he was talking about how the red light does help create easy water, the exclusion zone water. So I didn't get so specific. What was hard for me to find was a lamp that actually fit my specific.
Where the UV was.
Exactly. So I just got what I could and was happy with it. And then where my water outlet is going into the distributor for the house, the manifold, I have 4 ring magnets that are in a phase conjugate arrangement. And so that if there was anything in the water from a from a memory perspective, it's gone.
It's gone, yeah.
And then I'm not done.
Oh wow, it still goes. That's awesome. So it's reverse osmosis. Well, first of all, it's got 4 phase aligned, phase adjugated ring magnets that feed into a reverse osmosis modified with the mod chip biochar replacement module. And then what happened? What's the next thing?
So in my kitchen, because I love seeing water spin, I have a Mayu water filter. It's not a filter, it's just a water vortexer. And then my friend Frankie, who's in the chat, what up, Frankie?
What up, Frankie?
He's from New Zealand, so he just has water on the brain. New Zealanders,
The kiwis, that's my favorite. Got that feijoa fruit. That's what I ate when I went to New Zealand. It was awesome. Go ahead.
So he got in St. Louis, he got this beautiful, like it was an old olive oil vase that was on a stand. And the olive, it looks like a long elongated teardrop. And so I have an analema wand that perfectly fits down the center of that. So after my water vortexes, I pour it into that vase, and then it's sitting right in my windowsill. And then that's the water that I give to the family. That's what we drink.
That's pretty cool. That's it's clearly gone through a boot camp and special forces training by the time it hits the glass.
Yes, yes. Because I love
That's
it.
cool,
like
though.
like my whole routine in the morning is literally like I'm like making sure my water situation's all set, and like my wife she's a triple Pisces. I have a lot of Pisces in my chart, so we're sensitive to the water. We chose this property because of the water. In fact, the last 3 houses I've bought, last 3 properties I've owned, it's been because of the water. That's been like I said, ever since Schauberger came into my consciousness, it's been like, okay, how do I actually make sure that I have this element right in my life?
That's cool. I have to dive into Schauberger's work. I've had like 20 friends that are like, you have to read Schauberger.
Yeah, I would say the best book on his is actually written by Callum Coates, The Living Energies. The books
Okay.
the books that his son writes,
Yeah.
they're good because he exposes you to some more literature and stuff like that. But I'll tell you, Callum Coates' book, Living Energies, bar none, like
I can remember that.
it's the most read book I have in my library. Like
And what do you?
meaning like
Go
I've
ahead.
read it cover to cover like 20 times.
Wow, you just like the book like that.
It's
Does it read more like an like a manual or a narrative or a novel or
It's
a
more like a
biography?
narrative. Like you could tell that Callum Coates was an environmentalist in his day and age, and so he has some from my perspective, some outdated ways of looking at our realm. This whatever you want to call this place that we are, he's coming from, it's like there's a very limited fixed amount of resources, and his speech patterns kind of talk like that. But his reverence for what Victor Schauberger was willing to, what Victor Schauberger actually created, is amazing. And his understanding at a deep, almost esoteric level of the difference between implosion and explosion is probably the most important thing. Like you're talking about how they took the biofield anatomy out of science because they had their grift. They couldn't have people be educated about the biofield anatomy because then the grift would be up. Well, it's the same thing with ether, and it's the same thing with water. They're literally like, okay, guys, 1918. Okay, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, he talking too much. Anybody else? Okay. Right.
I mean, like, it was just like the con was on, and it was no joke. And so Callum Coates' book is non-apologetic about how shafted Schauberger got, and it was just like one of those things where like there's no way, like, because the biggest grift with Schauberger from my perspective is flight. Like he was the water wizard, as they called him, and all that type of stuff. But literally every jet engine, when you see these schematics from like 1910, 1912 of Schauberger, and he's showing you the side cut of a turboprop jet engine. And he's saying, like, literally, he's saying, okay, this is like a trout body. And how trouts move forward is they don't push with their tail. they get pulled forward. That's exactly the way these turboprop fans work. They create a negative pressure in front of them, and they get sucked forward. And one of the biggest, I don't know where you stand with the Mandela effect thing, but like,
I don't know either.
for
I'm
me,
unfamiliar with it, but I'm kind of like, who knows at this point?
well, for me, I mean, I have a massive Mandela effect because of Schauberger, because when I was reading his book in 2005 and 2006, I was flying down to Central America a ton, and all the jet engines were underneath the wings. Now they're in front of the wings. And like it was one of those things where it was just like, because he was talking about how the elegance of being pulled forward, what that would occur from a heat perspective behind and all this other stuff. It's just like he was dealing with implosive forces, not explosive forces. And so when that Mandela happened, where now every single engine, turboprop or every turbojet turbine is now in front of the engines, I had like, you talk about cognitive dissonance, because I was just like, because that was something I was intimately like looking at in 2005 because of his book. They were all under in whatever reality that I was experiencing. I can still remember, even throughout my childhood, all the jet engines were underneath the wings. They weren't in front of them.
Yeah, like now they're all in front. I'm thinking about that as you're saying. I'm going, he's right. They're all kind of in front because they're creating a negative pressure that's essentially pulling the front part of the turbine.
It's a negative pressure. So like if you have like a 777, they have these two massive turboprops and they're spinning, and they do this thing like this, right? And this creates a zone in front of the jet, of the fuselage of the jet, that actually, it's like the eschaton. It pulls the plane towards it.
Oh, got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
And so
I didn't realize that.
and what's behind the jet, you do have a force that's behind it, but that force is just the air that has rushed through the engine to create the negative.
Yeah, the balance from the negative pull.
Right. And this is where like the whole jet fuel hoax thing is massive, because they'll tell you, like, one thing that never made sense to me, because I had so many pilots in my family, was I was like, my entire life had been like, how is jet fuel, like, how is flying so inexpensive? It should cost like 100 times what it costs. And then you look into like the fuel consumption of some of these massive planes, right? What they say, what it says they consume. And I'm like, just like, oh, there's no way. And then after 9/11 occurred, I kind of gave up the goat on that, because it was like, oh, the government is, subsidizing all the airlines. Essentially, all the airlines are owned by the government. At least half the fuel is subsidized by the U.S. government. I was like, okay, now I can see why things, cost as little as they do. And then talking with Jim Lee throughout the years, and you find out, oh, not only has air travel doubled, it's actually quintupled in the last 40 years. The price arc on tickets has plummeted at the same time as quote unquote demand has gone up. And they changed all the jet fuel to be like ultra toxic. And I was like, oh, never let a good crisis go to waste, or never create a good crisis to go to waste. It's like, oh, I see the play now. Okay, this is the easiest way that the whatever metal salts need to be sprayed, we once again have consented to it, because now anybody can fly anywhere with like next to no money. Like I was appalled that in Europe, when I was there 10 years ago, it was like a third of the cost to fly places than it was to take the train. That makes no sense.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, they got that Ryanair thing.
Ryanair, you're just Pew, pew,
It's
pew,
like,
pew.
right, I got Ubers that cost more than Ryanair.
I know, right? So, we got people in the chat that are asking, well, what's how do you drink your water? Like, what's your water
Well,
process?
my water process is to get my behind in a car and hike up to the top of a mountain spring where I can actually dunk my head inside the spring. Is
Nice.
that close?
That's
And just
awesome.
fill up 100 gallons at a time and structure it. And that's the water that we cook with and drink with and kind of like teeth brush, just the basics and stuff like that. But I'm about to be. So we talked before briefly about Black Mountain, North Carolina,
Yes.
and just the. You have family or some history there?
Yeah,
What is
yeah.
it?
My grandparents lived there, God, for 40 years. They had a house in Black Mountain because my grandfather was just from north of there in East Tennessee.
Hmm. Hmm.
He grew up in this real rural place in East Tennessee. And so just diving down into Asheville and over to Black Mountain, that was like nothing. Like for him, that was like essentially living in his hometown of Tennessee. And they were the Walkers. And so the Walker clan had, God, 6 families on Black Mountain, North Carolina. Now, I hadn't been back there since like late 90s. So it's been a minute. But I
Oh,
grew,
it's beefed up now. I
yeah,
mean,
but
not that much, but a little.
yeah, but I grew up like going there when it was like rural.
Yeah, like you probably saw a horse or two.
And I remember it was kind of cool because like I would go down to Asheville and they thought they would talk in their country twang and they'd be like, "Oh, you from Fort Lauderdale? Are you a surfer?" It was so funny and I thought I was
Mm,
like, hot
I'm
stuff.
from Florida. Mm. Yeah, the Asheville. So Asheville is a whole like new vibe now. Asheville's like expensive, bougie
I
real
I
estate.
know I know we drove through there like a couple years ago and I was like, "Babe, this is like Fort Lauderdale now."
Yeah, exactly. And it's like North Carolina's I don't really get into the politics, but North Carolina in general is pretty red. Charlotte, Raleigh, and Asheville are blue to the max. And so you have this really hippie liberal town. It's like Bend, Oregon meets Portland, Oregon meets Portlandia in the mountains of North Carolina. And then everything around it, including like a block or two outside of Asheville, is all pretty conservative.
Yeah.
But so there's springs up there. So do you remember from your childhood the water up there?
It was incredible.
Yeah. There's a spring that we go to, and it's kind of one of those springs that they don't have a name, they don't have no address. You just gotta know where it's at,
Mhm.
and you get the pin or the geo coordinates, and once you get there, it's all the water you can get is yours. It's pretty much pumping probably like a gallon every 2 or 3 seconds. You'll get a full gallon's worth. So it's going constantly.
Mhm.
And I've met people up there from Florida who drive up to that one spring. I got kind of put onto it by a buddy who's very much into this type of thing, but it's been my solid. So then when we invested in some property in the mountains, a little north of Black Mountain, about an hour north of Black Mountain, lately we found that our property we knew it had running water, but because it was one of our criteria for buying it, but we didn't know until we bought it that it was a spring fed creek, and the spring head was like basically just north of the edge of our property. So we have like our
Wonderful.
own little private mountain spring that feeds a whole like I won't, it's definitely not a river, but it's like a healthy creek, like all the way down like a 4,000 foot mountain to the bottom.
That's wonderful. What color, excuse me, what temperature is the water when it comes out of the ground?
It's ice cold, like it's cold. It's probably like 40 something,
That's
50.
that's primary water then. If it comes out of the ground at 42 degrees, the anomaly point of water, that's what Victor Schauberger said was a good spring.
But I'm pretty sure it's like one of the originals because it's kind of tucked in like a funky corner, and it's like you can stick a straw in it and just drink it straight. It's just super pure. and it's always ice cold when it comes out, but it always flows even in the dead middle of winter.
Hmm. That's
So it's
wonderful.
so we've got a lot of water ideas. I got a big water project coming up because I'm starting to get interested in water, and I feel like with this land and this investment, it's been a kind of a lesson, almost like God's kind of giving me this little nugget to kind of refine and say, hey, listen, water
Hmm.
is the source of life, and here's a project. Here's a bunch of water. It's like source water, primary water. Let's see what you can do with it. Because when we bought it, we did it. All we knew was we had certain checklists for what we're looking for. It was like the week between Christmas and New Year's. We saw this listing. Everybody in the family was like, "Oh, we love it. Okay, we gotta put the offer in." It was like, it has to happen like basically. You have no time to really decide on these things. And it wasn't until the spring and then summer that the snow melted and we kind of saw, okay, there's a lot more going on here than I realized. Then we meet our neighbors, and I'm like, hey neighbor, how you doing? To the water, like, how, is it good? And he's like, buddy, is it good? It was one of them like foghorn leghorn laughs. He was kind of like, you guys are new around here. You're from Charlotte, the city of slickers. This is like as original as it's gonna get right here. And he's like, you see right above that mountain? He's like, that's where it comes out. He's like, you can take a 4-wheeler and just swan dive in it if you want to. I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll take you up on that. Not right now, but sometime.
Hmm.
But it's a very like I'm very optimistic to kind of build out some sort of like capture and like print erasure, like because I like you mentioned the biochar being a good thing to erase the memory. Now Veda's work has this whole beautiful kind of like water carrying this leaf and kind of spring water carrying this leaf imprint when it's kind of just doing its thing as an average, in terms of all the people who have sent her photos. And when I did Veda's method and photographed it, I got a similar thing. They look like feathers or leaves in
Hmm.
our spring water. But I would be very curious to
Well, the
blank it
feather,
out.
so the feather thing is very, this is cool. This brings you back to Schauberger. He was emphatic that you only want to store water in the egg shape. And a lot of birds, they have eggs to propagate,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And so the egg shape is essentially the male and the female energy together perfectly, because an egg usually has a lancet arch dome
Hmm.
as 2/3 of it, and then it has a hemispherical dome as 1/3. The hemispherical dome is the female, the male is the lancet arch. So the male and the female come together, and this very alchemical way of seeing how water wants to flow. If the male and the female are in that proportion, 2/3 to 1/3, you're always going to have more of a diamagnetic charge because men are more diamagnetic. We have direction, whereas the female energy is the receiver, it's paramagnetic. So when you have that ratio of 2/3 diamagnetic to 1/3 paramagnetic, you get just this water that stays fresh. It always has the freshness to it. And
Mm.
you'll never get the mold in your tank, you'll never get the algae, you won't get any of the bacteria or anything like that. And that's the whole reason why, well, I would say it was the primary driver for me to learn how to do ferro cement when it comes to domes. It was because to build these egg water tanks.
Mm. Got it. And so, do you build water tanks that are adjacent, like apps or different things on the super adobe structures, or is it always like a separate thing?
The super adobe structures are usually above ground because they will attract moisture. So a lot of the
But these
dome
other things are underground,
you
the
put
water container.
so it's kind of cool. This is another Schauberger principle. Is like if this is the ground, you in the ground is like from a hermetic perspective, the earth is female, like the ground down is female,
Hmm.
and the sky above is male. Father sky, mother earth type thing. And so he said you want to penetrate the ground with the male. So you put 2/3 of the egg, the pointy side of the egg, down into the ground. and then you put the 1/3 of the egg that's female facing up towards the sky. So it's just like the way a battery would work. You
Mm-hmm.
know, the female is being imprinted by the male, and the male is imprinting the female.
Interesting. It's like it makes sense. It's like the egg shape. That's very interesting too. So okay, yeah. Now it's giving me some future trajectory to look forward to find cool ways to harness and store the the best possible water we can get our hands on. So we'll talk more about that when we get down the line
Yeah.
and that becomes more of a thing. But that's cool.
So in the chat, we got a few people. I told people to send questions. We have over 100 people watching right now, which is great.
Hey
Marie,
y'all.
Martinez, she's asking for solutions. And that's a big thing. I've been hyping up this communication with you because people get tired of me saying like biochar, like is a solution.
Bye,
So,
John. Bye, John.
because like you can put biochar paint on your house and it's going to block the microwave radiation, blah, blah, blah. What do you think are some solutions that we can share with people?
So the one thing I will say is I am still writing that list myself. I have acute solutions and I have the kind of model for the more ultimate solutions, but I'm not an expert on either one. But I will share with you is kind of what my list looks like. But as far as acute solutions, what that's really doing is it's minimizing, like I call it, like if the annoying tickle is the system trying to get its hands all in you and on you, and it's just this like get off me, get off me. There's not like a magic button you can just hit other than the angels and God, and as far as I know there's not just like a one size fits all, okay, done, I can go on about my life. It's more about minimizing the amount of tentacles that can tickle you and annoy you by reducing the amount of time you rely on the things that have the tentacles.
Mm-hmm.
That is the social medias, the phones, the technologies. Now, most of us live in a world where we're not in a position to just leave all that stuff and walk into the woods. And I understand that. It's just to say that they gave us this playing field knowing that nobody was forced to pick up a phone or a laptop and like doing, I mean, you always have the option of not doing the digital approach.
Right.
So the idea that, well, the world is going there and therefore I have to keep up, that's an internal solution, whereas other people are doing the opposite of that. They're going to build farms and homesteads and solutions outside of the computer space. But it's to say that we can talk about things to help mitigate. We can get harmonizing devices. We can shut our Wi-Fi off at night. We can paint with certain rooms in our house with EMF proof paint to kind of minimize what's being asked. We can disengage from certain blockchain services. One big thing Sabrina talks about a lot when I talk with her is just how important it is that people understand that just owning crypto and engaging in the bio blockchain based system is engaging with this digitwin bio access because that's how the system was set up,
Mm-hmm.
and that it's called software as a service. I think she'll probably be like, no, we've gone over this. Software as a service, I believe is what it's called. It's a it's just the way that the standards are set, that if you're doing the minimum over here, it's doing the most over here because it's just a part of their software as a say, okay, oh, you want this one thing in your wallet, okay, great, well, we're pre-installing these 37 things because that's just a part of this system. You're engaging with it over here. You said I agree. You didn't bother going to page 432 and asking what these little terms were, so here's what it is. Hopefully we've worked the bugs out. And I think what's happening is that you mentioned earlier your fat intermuscle fascial myo. Explain that title again.
The deep tissue myofascial release.
Yes, deep tissue myofascial release. So the fascia of the human body, the interstitium of the human.
Our real nervous system. That
Boom.
is our real nervous system.
Nervous system. It has been presented my way, or to me rather, by way of Miss Wallace, that the interstitium is the neural network that they kind of are rebuilding in this artificial way with their synthetic system. So I'm piecing together her stuff and a couple other people's that have really helped me understand. From a food and diet standpoint, the assault is to, or sorry, first things first, your energetic field informs everything that your body produces.
Yes.
So the assault is on the field first because that's the first line of, like, if it can get you in the field, they can get you, it can affect everything backwards. So they've hidden this invisible warfare that's affecting the field. But then at the same time, they have psychologically convinced you that it's better to engage with their system, and you and all your friends talk to one another on all of their systems. And then they give us the social network or the Elon Musk files or whatever. They just give us these fake stories of how all this technology shows up, and then you find out 20 years later, like, wait a minute, this was actually Boeing and Raytheon this whole time. Hold on, time out. Then they get you on the financial side of things, where they just give you this new option and make it cool and popular, and don't really tell you how biointegratable it is, because it's all these different systems you see going on at the same time. So you now we're dealing with this kind of like mainstream. It's becoming popular now. Now it's being sold, and it's being kind of brought online through the social media space, this Web3 concept, all the stuff Allison and Sabrina and everybody else talk about. Because the water aspect, the biofield aspect, the tokenomics aspect, these are all different, almost like layers on the same exact cake, like the same exact slice that we're all being forced to swallow here. And I just think that people don't, it's almost like the conversation is being purposefully shorthanded to not put the sandwich together. We can talk about any layer or none of the layers, but we can't talk about all the layers together. And so that's why I find like your take and just what you bring to the combo very fascinating, because you know about all those individual sections, layers, I should say, maybe.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing for me in really digesting Schauberger's work and understanding that if I wanted to have quality in life, I really needed to get the water element right. And that was something that growing up in South Florida, our water quality was horrible because we had such a high water table that the municipal water, they had to essentially chlorinate like to no end. And
oh yeah, just to get it.
And then there were so many years where they were pumping the sewage from the treatment plants into the aquifer because the drought was so bad. At least that's what they were claiming that was the reason they were doing it. And their whole thing before I left Florida was like, oh, don't worry about it. Those solids, they sink to the bottom. That won't do anything. That won't do anything to you.
They sink to the all that pharmaceutical.
So check this out. So I am blessed in the fact that God has allowed me to touch a lot of people. When you massage people, the number one thing that you see to begin with and feel is the skin. And so I had these Scandinavian clients when I first started reading Schauberger, and for years I was like, what are y'all doing? Like, your skin is perfect. Like, perfect. And these were like old birds, these weren't like, 18-year-old kids. And they were in their 60s, and they were like, they smoked and they drank, and they just had just perfect bodies and just perfect skin. And as a massage therapist, I'm like a skin connoisseur, and I'm just like, what do you all do? And they're like, sauna, Topher. And I was like, sauna? And so they taught me about sauna. And then they would say every time that they would go back to Scandinavia, specifically parts of Sweden, they would do these these deep immersions in this glacier, like perfect water. And then I'm reading Schauberger, and Schauberger is talking about the Austrian Alps and all the stuff in the water there. And I'm like, I literally have this in my experience. I've worked on people that don't necessarily have the best inputs. These aren't like, health freaks that are like eating all organic. Like, these are smokers and drinkers. But what's consistent with them is that, other than the area of the world that they're from, is they constantly are getting in this really hot water and really cold water, and it's very high quality. And their skin just bore it out. Like, their skin, like, dude, when I tell you, it was like just like one drop of oil on their skin was all that was needed. And you could do like an hour and a half massage.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And it's just like, whoa, what is going on? And it wasn't that because their skin was oily. It wasn't anything like that.
Right.
Dude, there was not a single South Floridian that had skin like that. My wife and I, we grew up in the cesspool of sewage in our aquifer. And you can tell it's in our skin. Like, all of us have these weird freckles and all this other stuff. And then I got to go all over the world and be other areas of the world where they had good water. And there was a direct correlation. People that had good water and always had it around them and were always in it, they had less, skin adhesions. They had just better skin, better hair overall. And then the places where people were exposed to tons of pollutants in their water, they didn't. It's that simple. It's just like, duh.
Duh, yeah. Huh. Well, I don't know what was in our shower water. I think I did all right, but I'm looking to build something very, like, I just think if you can have your kids grow up in your house, I'm sure it's already like that because at least you have reverse osmosis and it's got the biochar doing all the blanking. I think that the skin, because isn't it supposed to be the largest organ in the body?
It's the largest organ. It's the biggest filtration organ. It's like
bigger than the liver and kidneys?
Much bigger.
Well, I know size-wise, but I don't know why I thought always the liver was the number one detoxer.
No, the liver actually, I just found out, I just interviewed Garrett Smith, and the liver actually stores the toxin. It doesn't detox it.
Ah.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people's livers are storing a lot of toxins. So what's this whole glutathione,
The glutathione it's your body's number one way. When your body produces glutathione, it's there to essentially, take out the free radicals. So if you have fatty liver or if your liver is overtoxified, you can't produce the necessary glutathione. You would think the body, when it's toxic, would produce more, but that's not the way it works. The liver has to be in good working order and have a low level of toxicity in it to produce the amount of glutathione that's needed for you to be healthy.
That seems I never realized that. I knew it produced glutathione. I just didn't realize that it doesn't crank it up when you use it more.
No, it's just like, people who do hormone replacement therapy. You give your body those hormones, your body stops making them. It's the same way like what people like with they talk about all these different receptors that we have. And they're like, oh, we have THC receptors, so it's healthy for us. Well, it's crazy. Now they're admitting that the THC, we do have receptors for it, but what the naturally occurring, the derivative of that our body naturally makes when it's substituted with something extrinsic in the form of THC, it deregulates our hormones. And that's why it can be such this addictive thing, is because like the only way we feel like we could have balance in our mood cycle is by having the THC. So, the body's amazing like that. It's just like, oh, you want to it's always trying to conserve energy. So it's like, oh, you're doing this. I'm now gonna shunt that energy over here to this system that needs it.
Right. That makes sense. That's why I think, like, even with these supplements or even with these pharmaceuticals, it's kind of exploiting the worst version of the mouse hitting its own version of the dopamine button. Because every mouse is gonna hit it every time. Everybody's gonna want to auto hit the button if they can.
That's so true. That's so true. We're getting some comments here from Beth Martins. Wonderful. The liver should have been called the heart. It's the thing that fails close to death. It's been doing the silent work of survival all along. That's so true. And Frankie Gall, this is my man that has the great coffee beans. He's like, coffee enemas boost glutathione production. Sell it, Frankie.
You ever done the coffee enema?
No. I like to make fun of people that do enemas in jest. Like, I've seen miraculous things. I know I probably need to do it, but yeah, I have resistance to it. I have resistance to putting things up my butt.
That's a very, very a cisgendered resistance.
Call me. Hey, you, I know, right? Yeah, okay.
How very cis of your resistance. Resistance.
I'm totally okay with that. No,
I had this idea. Somebody should make a TV show called like the Enema Challenge, and it's like a Japanese game show, and you win all this money if you can like maintain the enema duration, but like comedians tell you jokes, and you have to do these obstacle courses while also doing the enema.
Yeah. The thing with enemas to me is like, if I ever needed to eliminate like that, I know my body reacts. Like if I do like a high saturated fat in any great amount, my body just eliminates everything.
Good. Well, hey, that's good. It worked like it's supposed. It basically don't need the enema.
That's what I'm saying is like, I'm very regular in that way. And so like, for me, I'm just like, do I need it? Now I do have now I do understand because of the different things that I build and work with. I'm exposed to probably some pretty bad chemicals here and there. It would probably do me right just to do some sort of liver cleanse. Because last time I did liver cleanse, I had these things that came out of me, these like gallstone thingies that look like Mountain Dew color. Like it was nuts.
Oh, snap! Like Surge.
Like, dude, it was like that Mountain Dew neon green yellow. It was,
ooh-wee.
Yeah.
Was it chewing gum from 7 years ago?
No, from when I was a kid, probably.
Exactly. That's what they say, though. Did they say that for you when you was a kid?
Yeah.
If you swallow gum, it's gonna stay in your body for at least 7 years.
Definitely.
That's what it might have been.
Definitely.
some juicy fruit or some spearmint.
So I want to tell something. I want to say this to people out there that are looking for solutions when it comes to being resilient to the actual electrosmog.
With solutions, we got to get back.
So with electrosmog, especially for women, women are more susceptible to electrosmog than men because you guys have less muscle mass. And especially when women get older and the body starts to really lay off the muscle, like the muscle starts to degrade. I've had so many clients where they're greatly more affected by electrical fields. So your muscle mass will actually, I always implore people to safely do some sort of weight training where you have your muscle mass is lean and strong. Because if you do that, then your electrical potential, the mitochondria that your body has, will put off a greater electrical field, which will kind of give you like a little bit of a force field. I know massive Nephilim in my life that they could never tell you whether or not they were in an electrical field or not. But then I'm around 95-pound women and they're like, they can feel everything because they don't have enough muscle mass creating enough an electrical field to act as that positive barrier to all
Got
these
it.
to
Against other fields.
yeah.
So
And
they're basically feeling the bigger field.
yeah, exactly, because women are the negative pole. Because in deep tissue myofascial release, my specialty is in polarity therapy. So women are a net negative charge, men are a net positive charge. So
Say it again. Say it again. Go ahead.
so the female energy is always pulling into its center, and where the male energy is pushing out from its center. So the male energy is always like it's more, this might be cisgender, whatever. But this is like the energy of pushing out and like creating a field out there is it's much more masculine, where the female energy is much more conflict avoidant and pulling into the center and internalizing things.
That makes sense.
And this is the same way with the physiology. So for women to gain a little bit of resilience, to be anti-fragile in this situation, one thing is a phone like this on my body of a 220-pound man isn't going to do much. If you're a 100-pound woman with no muscle, guess what? The field
It's doing twice as much at least.
it's just a numbers game. It's just like simple math in that regard. So a simple solution is make sure, one, we've already talked about water. Make sure you have really good water, that you're paying attention to the beauty of water. I always tell people to have joy in your life, like do something enjoyable. And I say this more to men than anything, because men can have a tendency to get too function oriented. I'm function stacking and I'm raising my game to the next level, and then they just forget just to do things just for the kid of it, just for the joy of it. Because the joy vibration cleans your field.
Clean. Yeah.
It cleans the water in your field. It cleans everything. So I always say have some sort of water vessel or water feature that gives you joy. Don't think about is the angle of the molecules. No.
Yeah.
Just be like, and like when kids see vortexes, they feel joy. Like
Right.
allow yourself to be a kid around water and feel the joy. I'm sure you feel that when you're up at your spring.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I'm the bigger kid. All the kids like, Dad, can we go? Like I'm like, no, one more time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, for real. Like I see what you're saying, and what Sabrina always says is that joy and gratitude, even though sometimes it's hard to feel that in the middle of like an instant or in the middle of a moment where you're feeling attacked, it does do the strongest change in your electric state. It,
Oh,
it generates the largest adjustment. And there is an element. I won't go so far as to say that like just smile and be happy, and then their systems can't lock onto you. I'm saying the way that I understand it is that it's some sort of electrical coupling that's mathematically based around the consensus frequency of fear
yeah.
and anxiety. And as long as you can not default to that, you're making it harder for them to do what they're trying to do to you.
Dude,
See what I'm saying?
I can't even tell you how many times I've shorted out live streams by the joy I feel.
Oh yeah.
I've probably had half a dozen live streams with Owen Benjamin that
Hmm.
the whole stream just collapses because the energetics would start to flow, and it was just like boom, the signal is sent and the thing just shuts down because the system only has so much capacitance. And if you're saying it's working on the baseline frequency of the lowest common denominator, if you go
Yeah, exactly.
if you go on a sufficient other
Other end of the span
yeah,
of the
it's just
spectrum,
it's
yeah.
like no. Let's do a little time out here.
Yeah, that's funny that you mentioned that because that I never factored it being kind of like almost like almost like a fuse does with power. Sorry, it's a happiness fuse. It's like too much gratitude coming through to too many people to affect our system. Cut off,
Dude,
as
I
like an auto.
it's amazing with the juice of a live stream, especially depending how many people. It's like being at a live concert.
Yeah.
There's just like if enough people are getting the vibration that, like you said, it's above their baseline, and then it pops up, the system just it literally has a brownout. I've seen
Brown out
I've seen it time and
so
time
many
and
times.
time again. Where
So
where all of us have like the best internet, we have all the connections, we have everything sorted before the live stream. We get into this like really good groove, the banter is going, the chat's going, and then boom,
boom.
the bomb of consciousness is dropped, and then the whole thing is eviscerated.
So, hey, I say haters gonna hate. Internet protocol haters gonna hate. So, to that whole point, this electric body, this the ability that we have to in the muscle and in the core of your, I guess, your cerebral spinal fluid, just like siphon that electricity through and out, like through the dimensions and out of your body
Yeah.
and through your field. And the interstitial, this whole, so the good question is, what are some solutions? The problem is just all the solutions don't really look or sound like things that seem like solutions for the problems at hand. So let me get this straight. Happiness and gratitude, that's my solution. And we're kind of like, I mean, yeah. I mean, I
Mm.
get it. I get the optics, but the answer is still yes. Because it's like fear and anxiety are what are being suggested as the baseline for the interstitium fascia interconnection mycelial network to stay in that default connected state.
Hmm.
So by you jumping to the other end of the spectrum consciously, the subconscious follows, and then the energetic body begins to inform along. Begins to be, you know, everybody stay on the same page. But I think that it's just like I found it important to understand how much intention and kind of like moving your awareness to something that brings you joy, or at least that just fulfills you, will do to maintain or to work against their system. The person who, it wasn't Sabrina, somebody else, a different doctor who helped me really understand the dietary and kind of physical component from what Sabrina speaks about, the more networking and BioField component, is he basically said, your body's constantly looking to repair itself, but when it's not given the right minerals and materials to do that, it resorts to things that are next best,
Yeah.
and they end up lodging in your biofilm, that like little inner it's kind of like that web of connectivity between your muscles, nerves, fascia, and kind of like the water of the exclusion zone water in between all that. And he's like, malnourishment is key. Like they must make you cellularly malnourished,
Hmm.
and they must make you have some baseline fear or anxiety, because it's almost like if gratitude's over here on the spectrum and anxiety is over here, and this number is 1,000, this number is 500, they're setting their systems for like 500 to 600, and so they need you by default over on here.
Hmm.
I'm being very oversimplified when I'm explaining this, but the the encouragement, the social suggestion, the Hollywood aspect. This is all about fear, 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 horror, 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 anxiety, anxiety, anxiety. The news is like the worst thing that could have possibly happened in your county just happened today. But like it's just all about setting this as the baseline,
Hmm.
as opposed to just choosing to focus. Like, I mean, not we would all call it corny if the news was like, "Hi, let's just talk about positivity all day." Everybody would be like, "Next," but that's just because we've been engineered to go for the baseline, anxious, negative, kind of low energy, low vibration type thing. And then once they get that malnutrition and that energetic malnutrition locked in, then it's about giving your body something it can repair itself with that hooks into their synthetic systems. So when you talk about like, have you ever use one of those old laptops that didn't have a grounding plug, or like a MacBook Pro. MacBook Pros are notorious because they're metal, and they generally have a grounding plug. But sometimes if the prong breaks and you're just using it without the grounding plug, you can feel this like
Mm-hmm.
on the mouse pad. And as
Mm-hmm.
soon as you plug the ground plug back in, it's smooth again. And it's
Ah.
essentially the capacitance of the system running through your body looking to ground, but it can't. But you're kind of feeling the frequency of the machine there for a second. And I think that if people understood that that type of capacitance and resonance is being suggested to us as a part of a system wide networking strategy that has national security and encryption, bio encryption built in as a component of what it's kind of built in, a la Alison McDowell, then I think it would begin to inform. Let me not speak to you. I will speak for me. When I learned this, it began to inform me about ways that I was just holding my body in a way where I wasn't just like relaxed,
Mm-hmm.
or ways where I can feel some sort of anomaly in my muscle that I just knew wasn't didn't feel like me, my nerves or my weird twitch or something like that. And it doesn't make me paranoid or fearful, but it does make me go, okay, on an acute side, we've got some solutions that are about making yourself less susceptible. But on the more invasive or more serious side is the desire, at least that I'm taking, to learn how to actually control and feel my feel, like actually be attuned to the resistance in the field, to know when external systems are being sent my way, or when individuals or prying eyes or whatever it is affecting my field. Having the ability to physically feel it and push it away, like you have muscles that you can push away an attacker, that's the solution. That is a solution.
Mm-hmm.
Now that seems very lofty and distant and kind of ethereal. I agree, me too. It's just I just found out my biofield's a thing like 15 minutes ago, y'all. I don't have all the answers. I'm trying to tell y'all, hey, did y'all know that this is a thing that I never knew this. I thought you took a picture and as you get it developed. I ain't know about no Corellian. I thought that was a dude from Childhood's End, the
That's
big
funny.
red dude.
That's funny. Yeah, I've been actually very aware of the biofield for quite a long time, and so for
Hmm.
me, this is just a really cool way to know how that it's been digitized, and how, like I said, the Allison McDowell work, like the three of you, the trifecta of you guys, have really just clarified what the next system is to me. Now that doesn't mean I agree with it just because I understand it. It's one of these things where I've lived outside of central based systems before, and so it's just one of those things where this will give us a great opportunity to adapt and to figure it out. um,
Honestly, bro, you do you feel such a good role in that.
yeah,
The adaptation, figuring it out with all the building and the super adobe.
yeah,
Like once I found out that that is a thing and that people, whether we're talking like Cal Earth like model kind of thing or more of an independent thing, people can actually approach their own architecture in a way that has plenty of structure and plenty of functional use
yes,
and plenty of like beauty, depending on how fancy you want to get with the finishing of it all. That is a solution. That's right. That's exactly what you just said is what you do.
yeah, yeah. I mean, literally, like, I'm telling you, Schauberger changed my life. Like moving to
When did you find out about Shopburger?
after my
Sorry, I
first
didn't mean
after my first Saturn return. Well, it was right during my first Saturn return. So
Okay, so you got to explain, unpack that.
so we
You
all.
bought a Saturn and returned it to the dealership.
I
I'm
don't
confused.
I don't know where you are with like your study of the luminaries, but so we all go through about every 30 years wherever Saturn was at the time of your birth. It takes 30 years for it to go back through that point.
Hmm.
And
How do
in
you know? You have to look your chart up or something to know where it was on
yeah,
your birthday?
yeah, yeah. And so usually on your birth chart, you can see, what constellation it was relative to, what sign it was in. And when it gets back to that constellation or that sign, you go through something called Saturn return. And your first Saturn return is like it's like when you lose the innocence of youth, and then you recognize, oh no, I have to stand on my own 2 feet. And it's felt as an initiation. And I don't take that lightly. Like, there's not a single person I've met that hasn't gone through an initiation from the years, essentially 26 to 30. There's a range in there. You go through this like, oh my God, I now have to stand on my own 2 feet. And that's called Saturn return. And every 30 years you have to go through it. And every Saturn opposition is you always have to go through something extremely physically enduring. So all of us around age 14, 15, we went through puberty. Around age 44, 45, we go through our middle age, like, oh shit, my body doesn't do what it used to do. Around 65, 75, at least in North America, men go through like that, 75. Around age 75, you go through that like, oh, I either die or don't, but you go through something that's very physically trying at every Saturn opposition. And so Saturn return always marks where where your life is going to pivot. And it's going to pivot in a very real way. And for me, mine was like living in Central America, like moving to Central America, and then like really living by a true code. Like when I read Living Energies from Callum Coates, it was the first book that I had read that I actually had like a religious experience with, because I was like, I know this is right. I know this is the way. I know this is so. Like this, I have to follow this. Like I can't unsee this.
Right.
And I felt such a deep connection with it. I was just like, this is the way I'm going to go. Like, this is just what I have to do. And I had like
What year was that? What year was that for you?
2006.
Okay, so you're pushing 20 years on it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. You a guru.
I've been in it for a minute. And the craziest thing about that
That's cool.
book, so check this out. A guy who hated me gave it to me.
The guy who hated you gave it to you.
Yeah, so we were interviewing contractors. I was going down to Costa Rica trying to find a property, and then I had to try and find a contractor, and I was like zooming around, and I was really annoying this one contractor. And he, even though I annoyed the crap out of him because I just asked him question after question after question, he kind of appreciated my enthusiasm. And then I went back to Florida, and then like a month later, I went back down to negotiate the terms of our arrangement and everything like that. Mm-hmm. And we're talking, and he just like, hold on, and he shakes his head. And he's just like, he comes back, and he hands me the book. And I'm like, what's this? And he goes, my brother, who massages all these stars in Hollywood and things like that, he was given by one of his clients this book, and she told him specifically to give it to my brother, because my brother is going to know, or your brother, this woman was saying this to this, your brother is going to know who this book is supposed to go to. So it was like 3 sets of hands, like to get it to me. And this was a guy that didn't like me. He doesn't like me to this day. It's just like we are oil and water. Like we don't mix at all. And
so he got the book through somebody?
Through his brother.
Got it. Okay.
And his brother got it through his client. And so like it was just this upline from Orange County, California to me in southern Costa Rica. And so I get this book, and I'm like, oh, cool. And I don't think anything of it. I wasn't going to read it on my trip. And then I'm like sitting at a Whole Foods in Boca Raton, Florida, and I start reading this thing, and I'm like, it was warping my sense of vision. Like I was like, what am I even still doing here in Florida? Like I was
That's
like,
funny.
I was just like, I got to get out of here. And I like accelerated our whole plan to leave and get down to Costa. And it was just like, it was full on. I actually think I got the book in '05. Now that I think about it, because I moved down there full time in '06. And so it was a thing for me. And it's something that my building language with domes, my experimental language with electricity, orgone, and water, it's
Mm-hmm.
all informed by that.
Hmm. In Costa Rica in '06. That's cool.
Yeah.
And you were so you had did you go to do the college thing
Yeah, yeah.
at this point?
I played football at Michigan State.
Oh,
I
cool.
was their starting field goal kicker, 94 through 97.
Okay, cool.
Then I signed with the Baltimore Ravens, was on their practice squad for a season, and
Wait,
then
hold on. You just now are dropping that you signed with the professional football team. I didn't had no idea.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
the number two kicker in the NCAA.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Snap. I never knew this.
yeah.
You still doing any field goal kicking
Oh,
lately?
I mess around with my daughter's 5 years old, and so
Hmm.
we kick the soccer ball around. But yeah, like at one point I had a pretty good boot. So
That's cool. Okay, so you played for you played in college, you then signed for with the Ravens,
uh-huh.
and then you just decided not to, or you had a
No,
moment in your 30s, you had that solar return or Saturn
no, I
remembrance.
actually had a completion cycle my senior year in college. I didn't really have dreams of playing in the NFL. My dreams were more about playing college football because I wanted to chase the skirts, if you know what I mean. And so that's all where my imagination took me when I was little, was just I just wanted to play college football. And then I had gained enough positive momentum, especially after my junior year, where it was like, oh, you're going to be a pro, because I had gone to pro camps and outkicked a bunch
Mm-hmm.
of pros. And so I was like, oh, okay. And I was rated, it was Phil Dawson and myself that were rated number one and two in the country going into our senior years. And we went and played Notre Dame, and I had a completion. I kicked 3 field goals in our game against Notre Dame, and I felt content.
Hmm.
Like I was contented. I felt content. And then from there, like my level of dedication and everything like that really dropped off a cliff.
Dropped. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Even after the Ravens contract.
Well, the Ravens contract, they were just signing me as a practice leg to keep
Oh,
Stover.
okay.
I mean, I had a stronger leg than Stover, but he was an all pro. I think that year I was there, he kicked 30 of 33 field goals. Like
Wow.
it was laughable, but they needed a camp leg just to do kickoff so he would stay fresh.
Hmm. Well, hey, that worked. Okay, so that season then led into the completion feeling, and then the drive for football waned. But then, where did the drive for like? How do you get to what you're interested in now? Was it that Costa Rica season and just that shot workers run?
No, no, I was in a pro football camp, and one of my roommates, he was into transcendental meditation. And well, there were two things. It was this moment, and then also getting into yoga to fix my back. So I he's like, "Hey, you ever hear of transcendental meditation?" And I was like, "No, what's that?" And he's like, "Oh, you do this mantra and then whatever." And so I was like, "Oh, F it." We didn't have anything else to do. So I started to get into the mantra. And then,
Hmm.
dude, I blasted off. Like I was in another dimension. And then when I came back, I was like, what was that? And from that point on, that was really like the end of my desire of like worldly things.
Mm.
Like I really didn't care. I didn't care, like, my parents liked the clout that I had with where I was in football. I had a lot of opportunities in corporate life. None of that stuff mattered to me.
Mm.
And so I also, my senior year, I started to take yoga as an elective because my girlfriend was in it. And I found that I didn't have any back pain. And that was something that was new for me because I had back pain for years.
From football, yeah.
Yeah. And then in my university just, shot me up with, they fed me prednisone and shot me up with Toradol for years.
Lovely.
Yeah. And so my gut biome was wrecked. All the things that happen. And so the combination of finding yoga and finding that I could be healthy. I never really liked drinking. Like I liked having a drink here and there, but like I wasn't like into the collegiate, like let's get, blackout drunk. I wasn't into.
You couldn't really tailgate because you was in the game.
Right. I didn't like none of that culture. Like I was telling this story in one of my last live streams. Like I have promoters of like festivals that want me to come and speak and want me to do this or that. And they'll pitch me. They'll be like, and part of your payment is you get to be and come to the festival. And I'm like, I don't like festivals. You're going to have to pay me money.
Money, actual money, real green, real currency.
It's like I have never bought a ticket to go to any place ever where there's masses of people. People gift me those things and I appreciate it, but I hold no value in that. And it's kind of offensive to people that have that as an as an idol.
That's funny. Some people really do. So I'm assuming Coachella was never your thing, or like any of these big music festivals. Yeah, it's probably for the better.
No, I built for Boom in Portugal one year, and I think that was 2014. And like that's like 40. What did they? I think that year they had like 45,000 attendees, and it was just like I was over partying at age 19. Like,
oh wow.
Is
it because you just were that old soulish, or was it because you had partied that hard up until age 19?
No, my wife says it's because I'm a new soul. We think
okay.
I'm brand new, and
okay.
I just don't find I like this. Like I like talking to people like one on one. I like learning. I like being uninebriated. Like I really like having a clear mind. And I saw that especially in the new age world, one of the biggest thing was to augment your reality one way or another. So I feel like very protective of making sure my prefrontal cortex is in full engagement,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. That's my jam.
So what keeps you busiest on the weekly? By the way, I can't actually see the questions, so if there were other people with questions, feel free to ask them. I don't know if you had read them all.
Let's see. No, there's no real questions. I'm gonna have to sign off here because I'm getting the eyes from the dinner police over there.
The dinner police. I know the type. Dinner police.
But hey, everybody in the chat, hit the thumbs up and share this if you get a chance. What was your question, Chris? I forgot.
It wasn't anything. I was just about to kick the.
Oh, what I do during the week? Well, I have 4 businesses. I have my Coral Domes building company, which slows down during the winter because we can't really do concrete work. Then I have my massage business, and I still work on, 6 or 7 clients a week. And then I have my biochar company, which, making biochar and selling that. And then I also have the podcast and the stream.
Mm-hmm. So you are a busy man. You got a couple irons in the fire.
But it's all the stuff I love. It's all like, for me, it's like, I've literally lived by the moniker, do what you love, and you're not working a day in your life. Now, learning new things is kind of a little bit stressful, but I'm not afraid to learn new things.
Yeah.
So there's a little neuroplasticity that's there, but yeah, this is my jam at the moment. So I'm trying to give it a full go. Chip Wellington asks, is biochar lucrative? It's lucrative if you make it yourself. It's fixed carbon. It never goes away. So if you're fixing a lot of carbon, carbon's essentially free in the environment. So any biomass, you can definitely do. It's one of those things that's cumulative. It just keeps building up. It's excellent. So yeah, everybody's saying celestial profiles. Yeah, I still do those. Yeah, so Chris, I want to thank you, man. It's good for us to have this initial rapport in our first
Yeah,
conversation together.
absolutely. I had a good time. You always give me like every time I hear your discussions, I'm always like neural pathways that's bursting out, and I'm going. Number one, I gotta get more involved and just aware of biochar and its benefits. I'm familiar with it. I'm just not like that familiar with it. But
It's really, Veda and I were like nerding so hard because we, and Alec and I were talking about this too. It structures it structures water that's on it so well that it creates a field effect that all the water around it starts to structure itself. So it's like a field improver.
interesting. And you're just putting it on like a plate of biochar or on like a
No,
piece of bio.
I put it in soil. Like I'm the moniker for my new company, Black Gold Biochar, the whole thing is health from the ground up. It was the
Hmm.
original moniker for my podcast, which was, the BioCharisma podcast. I used to say
Hmm.
health from the ground up. But
Yeah, yeah.
it's something I really believe in is like if you make your soil healthy, everything else gets healthy. Like it just does. So,
So I'm saying, how does it structure the water or clean the water?
well, it's very porous. So when water goes over it, it's the reason why they use it in filtration systems is
Oh,
water
got
will
it.
go through it, but because there's all these micro cavities that whenever water has to do this,
Hmm.
it structures itself. So imagine that at the micro level.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like
all just getting information.
yeah, it's like all this
Yeah,
micro cavitation, and it gets super happy, and it turns into a battery. It turns into the exclusion zone water.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, man.
All right, the dinner police about to come arrest you at this point, and I can't bail you out.
That's
I'm about to
true.
go
That's
go
true,
holler
man.
at the dinner police
So,
myself.
Chris, where can people find you to give people your connects?
So I am on Instagram and honestly every platform except for YouTube as the number six and the number seven podcast. 6 7 podcast. Also 6 7 podcast at Gmail if you have questions.
I didn't know that. I gotta check your podcast out.
Yeah, 6 7.
You're just bragging, man. That's a humble brag.
Well, I know, right? It kind of became this like alter it became an alter ego out of function because when I first started to make the podcast, I was kind of like I don't want to just use my personal page for work related stuff and all kinds of stuff. So I just was like, oh, all my friends used to call me 6 7. I'll just use that, blah, 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 blah. And then it kind of stuck
Hmm.
eventually after enough people kind of caught on.
That's awesome. Well, I can't wait to check out your podcast. Like I said, I listened to you and Alec, and then I immediately was like, bloop, 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 doop, boop, 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 boop.
That's cool.
Alec, I gotta talk to him. So
That's awesome.
I'm glad it happened.
Yeah, me too, man. Thank you for your time, and thank you all for watching.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm gonna end the stream now.